Okay, let's do an update on Three Eye Atlas. So, interesting kind of theory that has emerged lately. Dobsonian Power has put it out there. So has Angry Astronaut. I just thought I wanted to address it because it's a pretty wild claim. Three Eye Atlas is the third confirmed interstellar object passing through our solar system. And it's projected to approach within the threshold of Jupiter's gravitational sphere of influence on March 16th, 2026. This is positioned precisely along the boundary where Jupiter's gravity dominates. The ideal is that this is an energetic point to release probes. That's what the theory out there is. Minimizing thruster use and to cruise in Jupiter's influence sphere and survey its moons. Uh, you know, the the object's path is interpreted as being adjusted at perihelion, implying that something intelligent did that. In fact, the non gravitational acceleration and a slight course correction it took put it precisely at this point in Jupiter's orbit where if it could, not saying that it's going to, there's not saying that there's any, clear directive that's going to, but if you were going to do that, that is the exact course correction you would want to make so that you could be at the exact point in Jupiter's sphere of influence where if you were to release something, it wouldn't necessarily drift into space and it wouldn't necessarily crash to Jupiter. It would just kind of balance. It's a balanced gravitational point. And so those things are once again feeling the fire that Three Eye Atlas might be something artificial, right? Because it's just one more hard to believe anomaly stacked on top of all the other ones, like the massive size. The massive size is kind of debated, and I'm now hearing that we haven't got a real good image of the nucleus, and it could be just 1 kilometer. Although I think consensus estimates are between 4 and 5. Some people like Avi Loeb are projecting it to be much higher. The higher and the bigger it gets, the less probable it is because of the frequency distribution. Like the something as massive as what Avi Loeb's talking about, which is 10 kilometers plus, it's just so rare that it would even be out there. And the fact that the third object to enter our solar system just happens to be that size on an ecliptic plane and a retrograde orbit and making these bizarre flybys and the perihelion when Earth was, basically eclipsed by the sun. Just the fact that it survived that solar heating and with its and also with its strange anti-tail behavior, right? Like a lot of it's not making sense, even though I'm going to tell you that the consensus from NASA and others is that it's natural, but it's because it's an interstellar object and not one that we're normally seeing bound to our sun and our solar system. But it did survive that solar heating, and made that slight course correction. So there's also a theory out there that Oumuamua, which was the asteroid with kind of like a comet tail, that it made a similar course correction and it made some similar moves. And so they're starting to link those two together and say that this is possibly a pattern, right? How is it that two objects come through our solar system and basically exhibited that pattern? Well, just for a reality check, recent data does confirm that Three Eye Atlas is very likely natural. NASA states it's a comet. It is showing some standard outgassing and tail formation behaviors. The CO2 rich composition and tail behavior raise fresh questions about its origin and structure, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's artificial. It's unusually volatile and it's a different composition than we thought. So this improved orbit means we now have kind of like a far tighter constraint on the trajectory, and this perfect boundary passage near Jupiter can be better tested, especially if there's any more movement or anything changes. We've got really good numbers on where it should be and when. It just, wow, man, it like hit the sweet spot if it was going to do that. Maybe it's not going to do that. So is this Jupiter threshold alignment real, or is it a artifact of orbital uncertainties, or did something course correct it? Does the CO2 dominance and the color brightness evolution suggest an origin in a different star system environment rather than an engineered object? And are these natural explanations stronger now than before? That's the questions we're asking right now, because if intelligence were involved, what would be the motive or the mechanism that would justify releasing probes from that specific, what they call the Jovian boundary point? Like, what would be that motivation? They just want to monitor it? Or, I mean, there's so many questions that are raised. And one of the questions I'll tell you is that if something is sending probes to our solar system because maybe they're looking for a planet to occupy, this is an entertaining hypothesis. Where do they come from? Because the nearest anything is light years away, and especially when you talk about a craft of any size, the number of years it would take for it to get here, you know, noting Einstein's theory of relativity and speed of light constraints, and the larger the object, the harder it is to go at that kind of speeds. And we're not observing that kind of speed, which, you know, it begs the question, like, where did this come from then? If it's some sort of probe, because there's nothing near us that where this would make sense. Like, we're just not an area that makes logistical sense for a neighboring solar system to come check out, because we're just too far away. We're like really far away from all this density in the universe. And so then the question is, if it well, what if they've figured it out? Like, what if they've warp drive, or they, you know, figured out how to interdimensional travel and somehow, you know, gap that space? Well, then why would they need to send something, you know, like this probe? Like, they could already be here. If they have that technology, they're so far beyond on everything else that we would already know that. So that kind of like tells us that they're not that far along, and that's not what it is. And if that's not what it is, listen, it doesn't make sense that it's alien. It doesn't. When NASA says it is most likely a comet, that they're calling it a comet, it's because there's no other hypothesis out there that can be proven that makes sense. And that's what science is, right? You examine everything, you eliminate what you can eliminate, and what's left is the truth. And right now, it's easy to eliminate alien origin, even with the anomaly of the course correction that put it into the Jovian location there around Jupiter, which is, you know, really strange. Now, we do have a big date coming, December 19th. It's going to be its closest Earth approach, and the post-perihelion outward leg will be in full observation. We'll have some great opportunities from ground-based stations with great optics, weather permitting during the time frames that we need it. We're going to see it. There could be more surprises coming, right? We have not had good optics on it yet, and look at all this information we got without good optics. Wait till we get better optics from serious ground stations that now know where it's going to be, and that's what I'm talking about. This trajectory is locked down. They know where it's going to be, when it's going to be there. They're already planning for it. I'm hoping we don't see the blurry images, right? But hey, a lot depends on the weather and Starlink satellites crashing out of the sky. We'll see. But for right now, I just want to tell you about this whole Jupiter thing and the theories that are out there. And I understand technically how they make sense, but what doesn't make sense to me is where this could possibly come from. And that's where the theory of alien architecture kind of dies with this.